Hey folks, this is BestInSlot and welcome back to Cryptid Park. In the last video we added the Ropen. Over here our Pteranodon replacing that fabled giant flying glowing pterosaur, and in the episode before we added our Chupacabra. That was our Troodon. I really like this little one. This is actually the most interesting habitat we have, I believe. I did ask for some name suggestions. Unfortunately, we only got two name suggestions. One of them is Mangy Carl, which I believe is a Office reference. We have Goat Sucker, and then we have Unnamed and Unloved, because they were. So, if you want to name today's creatures, you can do so by going to Large Carnivore. We're going to get one of those hatching in a minute. I'm just going to do my little introduction spiel. So today we're going to look at a large aquatic monster residing in Scotland. I'm talking, of course, about the Loch Oik Monster. Loch. Oh my god. Two things to cover here before we dive into what this creature is. The first is the pronunciation of the word loch. Most of us say loch. I've always said loch. But in this series I'm making an effort to integrate as much of the culture of the country we're focusing on as humanly possible. And in Scotland it's pronounced loch. I'm probably butchering it, but it's definitely better than loch. It's a pain in the ass to say. I'm going to try to say it as little as possible. The second word is oik. I would say oik. It's O-I-C-H. So I believe the name of the creature is the Loch Oik Monster. Again, I'm going to try to not say that very much at all. The second point is that this is, of course, not the Loch Ness Monster. It's not Nessy. Now, a lot of you suggested Nessy. It's been one of the more common suggestions. And they're similar in a lot of ways, but Nessy is very, very popular. There are tons and tons and tons of videos on Nessy already out there. So I figured for today, why don't we mix it up a little bit? Why don't we try something a little bit less known? It's essentially the same creature, but maybe you'll learn about a cryptid that you weren't aware of before today, whereas everyone already knows about the Loch Ness Monster. So, let's get started on the hatchery. Today we're going to play with the Mosasaurus mod that we showcased recently. I went back and forth on this. I was going to use a sauropod because, like with Nessy, there are humps involved and sauropod-esque looking creatures. You know, Nessy is often said to be a plesiosaur that still survived. However, Oiki, as we're going to call it, isn't quite the same. They're different in appearance, and we'll talk about that as we go through the video. So we're going to go with the Spinosaurus instead. Now, I need to try to find a particular colour. I'm looking for a dark coloration here, so maybe steppe. I don't know how much any of this works, but I'm basically just going to make a bunch of them, and we'll pick the best one, essentially. Something like that. Right, let's let our Spinosaurus begin. So, whilst our Spino is hatching, let's talk a little bit more about this creature. So, just as Nessy is called Nessy, Loch Oik needs a name, otherwise my throat is not going to survive to the end of this video. So, I am here after designating today's cryptid as Oiki. Now, Oiki is much less famous than its neighbour. We don't really have too much information, but we've got some. And when I say neighbours, I really do mean neighbours. Pray for me. Loch Ness, Loch Oik, and a third Loch. I am dying. And this one, oh god, this one's even worse. The third Loch is called Loch Lochy. Literally Loch Lochy. And I'm not joking. These are all remarkably close to each other. All three of these lakes, we're going to call them lakes, because they are lakes. Loch is essentially the Gaelic word for lake. They're essentially long, skinny stretches of water in the northern end of Scotland. Ness and Lochy, which is what it's called, are much larger, whilst Oik is substantially smaller. 1/300th the size or something like that, the size of Loch Ness. But it is filled with deep, dark trenches where an aquatic creature could potentially hide. So we're going to build our exhibit in a minute to look something like these three lakes. Lochy actually has its own lake creature, obviously Nessy's from Ness. And Lochy actually has its own creature, one very similar to Nessy, called Lizzie. So we've got Lizzie, right, basically if you imagine them in like a diagonal, in the bottom left it's Lochy, and that's where Lizzie lives. In the middle is Oiki, and that's where Oiki lives. And then in the northeast, that's where Ness is and where Nessy lives, okay? So we've got the three lochs. I just can't be bothered. Now, one of the more interesting aspects of the story is that because the three lochs are connected with each other through rivers, the Caledonian Canal and the River Oik, it's been suggested that the various sightings that occur are actually the same beast, Nessy, essentially, travelling north and south through these bodies of water, possibly for fresh hunting grounds. This would be especially suitable for Oiki because Loch Oik is, as I said, substantially smaller than the other two, so it would make sense if it has to travel around to eat. There is a little bit of a snag there. We'll talk about that in a minute. How are we doing? Okay, right, we're going to get started on the actual exhibit build. We do have a lovely body of water here, but that's not really relevant. I mean, well, we'll build over here. We can make it relevant. So I want to get the shape... No, it's not relevant. I want to try and get the shape down as much as possible. I really should have flattened this whole thing. Might have to do a little bit of flattening to kick things off here. I just need some room to play with. I think we'll just have like a bit of a drop-off, because the lochs, and the whole area really in Scotland, we're in the north especially, the Highlands, does have large mountainous regions. So it goes to stand to reason that there would be mountains nearby, so we can just have the tor drop sharply off the edge. It might look pretty cool in action anyway. Let's do that. Okay, you're not going any further than that, are you, buddy? Nah, not really. I think that's just... unfortunately, you can't get it super steep. But we'll go from there. Now, the problem is we have a slightly reversed angle at play here. So, in reality, the lochs go from southwest to northeast at like a diagonal, it's sort of like a 22-degree angle, something like that. So you imagine if we did it, it would be like, that's Loch Oik. No, sorry, that's Loch. Wait, let me find it. That's Locky. And then Oiki is in the middle, and then Ness would be up here at the top, and these two are much bigger. And then this one connects them thinly. Now you can see it doesn't really work because of the directionality of the areas. So what we'll do instead is we're just going to flip it around. So you imagine we're going this way instead. That means we can get rid of that water down there. And it just gives us a little bit more room to play with, I think. So this would be... I'm going to do like the edges... Oh, no. Oh my god, what's going on? There we go. I'm going to do like the edges of the other two lochs. The other two lakes. We're going to call them lakes. So we're going to do like the edges of them. So this would be one of them. Like down here. This would be Locky. I'm just going to call it Locky. This would be Locky. And then the main body of water we'd have would be here. I'm going to make this a bit wider than it would be. Be lots of water here. That would be Oiki. And then up here would be Loch Ness. And we just like, imagine like we're zoomed in on Oiki, and Ness and Locky are kind of like close by, but we're only seeing the tips of them, and they are connected via rivers, like so. I thought making sense? Hopefully. Okay, so that would be our main area. Now, I'm going to read a little bit more. There's more we can design, but I need to kind of read further into the story to do that. So, what is the snag? What is the problem with this theory that this one creature is travelling around? Well, Nessy and Lizzie are said to resemble each other greatly. Plesiosaurs, essentially long-necked, humpbacked, reptilian-looking beasts. But Oiki's a little bit different. Reports are vague, but I've found multiple sources tracing the first sighting of Oiki back to sometime in the late 1800s, before the Nessy craze took over in the early 1930s. Now, I couldn't find this report from the 1800s, but the story goes that there was an inquisitive child and he spotted the beast near the shoreline of Loch Oik. There's too many lochs, I can't get my head around it anymore. Anyway, it climbed onto its back, you know, as kids are prone to do. And as it did, the creature sped off into the water, plummeting into the cold depths of the lake and drowning the child in the process. It became known as a child killer. The body was never found. This report does lack detail, however, and we must travel forward to 1936 for our first real description of today's cryptid. I found an old book from 1937 called The Peat Fire Flame. This was a collection of folk tales and reported sightings of various creatures in Scotland. Now, it describes an encounter with Oiki, first reported by a local newspaper called the Northern Chronicle. Excuse me. It was August 13th, 1936. A headmaster, Alderman A.J. Richards and his son's friend. They were out boating on the Laggan side of the loch. Now, Laggan is a small Scottish village, and I found it on the southeast side of the loch, so we can assume they were boating off the eastern shore, given it's kind of got this directionality to it. You can see how it goes from the southeast to the northeast. If Laggan's like down here somewhere, then that would be the sort of the eastern shore. If you look at it on the map, this is approximately what it looks like. So Laggan is over here somewhere on the bottom right. Yeah, so they were boating off the eastern shore. They spotted a weird-looking creature, their words, emerging from the dark waters. The humps came first, 2 of them like the coils of a gargantuan snake, just a dozen yards away from the boat. And the head followed, a shaggy head like that of a dog. Coal black in colour, each hump was 3 feet or so in length and about the same distance apart. So if you imagine there's 2 humps, they were 3 feet apart and 3 feet apart from the head as well. This puts the beast at a minimum of about 12 feet long, and that would be discounting any tail beyond the second hump. 12 feet, as it happens, is about the length of a Plesiosaurus. As it happens, just saying. Moving on, right, so let's pop out our Mosasaurus. Where are we? Sorry, this is a little bit messy. It's a hard one to read. I don't know what else to say. Mosasaurus! Now, it does look a bit weird, because it's floating. That's the world we live in. We have to get over it. It's just the way it is. I thought it was fun. Anyways. And these were all rubbish. All of these are rubbish. These 3, I mean, specifically are rubbish. This one, however, it's not quite dark enough. I don't think we're going to get a truly dark one, unfortunately. I could try to pop out a couple more. What colours did we not go for? I don't think we went for jungle. We went for default rainforest, steppe, and wetland. So we didn't do vivid either. We'll pop these 2 out. I think it's probably going to be this one, because it's darker. It's got that kind of like blood red underbelly, which I think is pretty cool as well. Let's hop into capture mode for this. You guys can look at some Mosasaurus for a little bit. It's a really cool mod. It is unironically a very cool mod. It's a shame it floats, but there's really not much that can be done about that, if we're totally honest. You're screaming. I can't get out. What are you worried about? Absolutely terrified they are. Hey, when it's in the water like that, maybe we can have it sleeping permanently and it'll look like it's in the water. That's not a bad idea. Maybe we could have like a dead one sitting at the coastline or something. Maybe that's a little bit morbid. Realised I just should have could have increased the time on this one really well. I think I like this one, so we're going to send it over. Wait, what? How can the... What? I haven't deleted a path. What? How... What? That was very strange. How weird. Right. So, whilst Nessy and Lizzie look very, very similar, Oiki is something different entirely. Darker in colour and with this shaggy, dog-like, furry head. This then is the main problem with the theory that all 3 beasts are simply one creature travelling between the lochs. The shaggy nature described for Oinky is not that present in the other. It must be said, some people thought that Nessy was a catfish, because some have reported whiskers, so it's not too dissimilar, but it definitely isn't lining up perfectly. Fun bonus fact, however, about Oiki, and something that unfortunately shows one of the main problems with cryptozoology. In 1961, a group of hoaxsters, I love that word, hoaxster, decided to plant a fake Oiki near the shores of the lake. They took sort of like high quality photos of the beast in order to sell off to the newspapers soon after. And these newspapers were kind of like still caught up in all the fervour about Nessy, so this was a good time to make some money. They were found out, of course, because I'm talking about it, but it's been suggested that such antics have stymied any real research into the area. Oiki is often regarded as more mythical than its brethren. You know, it's less tangible than the Loch Ness Monster, because of the description of a shaggy head and more beast-like appearance, and this means it more resembles what is a very popular myth in Scotland, the Kelpie, and it's kind of like this aquatic horse, essentially. It's like half mermaid, half... It's like a mer horse. It's very strange. And it's actually often also oddly enough, associated with dragging children down into the depths of the loch. Usually badly behaving children, you know, as with a lot of cryptids and mythological creatures in general, it's kind of a warning to children to behave in a certain way. But the point is, the first story for Oiki was about this very same thing, and the first description describes it as shaggy, dog-like, but that could be construed also as horse-like, like a kelpie. Just saying. Let's transport our Spinosaurus over here, and whilst all that's going on, we have to rather quickly put a fence in before something terrible happens. Let's go heavy cable. I don't think electric's a good idea. Oh, we can't, can we? I don't have heavy cable. Go about that. So electric's fine. It's fine. You can have electric fences near water. You just have to not be stupid about it. This looks very strange to me. It kind of looks like a turkey, like a you know, like a giant piece of ham, or like a turkey leg or something. There's the bone sticking out. Really, yeah, it's like something out of the Flintstones. I want to keep this side of it quite close to the edge. I like the idea that, you know, maybe we discovered the creature in the loch and we contained the entire loch and like blocked it off, kind of like in like films where, you know, there's piranhas or sharks or something, and what they'll do is just block off the lake entirely, and then inevitably some horny teenagers break in and they get eaten alive, you know? I like that kind of thing. I like horny teenagers being eaten alive, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the theming we're aiming with here. Now, oh god, I wonder what the hell that was then. So we're going to give it some fish feeders. This one's always going to look a little bit weird. There's really not that much we can do about it, but we can do our best, ladies and gentlemen, and all you can ever do is your best. But the fish feeders will ensure that, hopefully, at the very least, it spends more time within the water itself. I'm going to put quite a lot of trees here and on the very edge to kind of block off the fence as much as possible. So essentially, what I want is that you don't see it unless it's in the water. Because that way, well, that just makes sense, right? Because then we can kind of pretend that's where it is. Now, I believe, and we'll hear about another story in a little bit, there should be a road on this right-hand side, down here. So I'm just going to do a path going down this side, near Lagan. Or where will be Lagan. So the road kind of like curls off there into the jungle, that's fine. Not into the jungle, but whatever. Into the Scottish Highlands. So, I got that there. And then we're going to have Lagan just sitting. It's not like perfect, obviously, but it would be sitting somewhere on this lower... You're a cheeky little tree, aren't you? What are you? You look like you should be... Huh, interesting. Right, so Lagan. How are we going to build it? Just like a little hotel? Can I hide the path that way? Obviously, it doesn't really look like a little Scottish town, but I think it's the best we're going to get. So, do that, and then we'll have a tree line on this side of the road. And we'll have the little bit of road going down here as well, just towards the town, essentially. I want to keep this bit fairly clear. The idea is that, as you'll see in a bit, somebody spotted the monster whilst driving past. They looked out the right-hand side, and they saw the monster within the lake. So we need to make sure you can see the lake a little bit from this road. And this is the road I'm going to pretend they were driving along, essentially. Something like that. Let's go check on our other mosas, see if they look any good. We're looking for dark colours. Big old no on that one. So, go ahead, Joe. If it's not a kelpie, and if it's something different than Nessy and Lizzie, Oiki then, what is Oiki, essentially? What are we actually looking at? The first thoughts on this subject, way back in the 1930s when it really started to take off, I got this awful as well. Okay, we're sticking with the one we've got. We're only going to have one, because this is such a rare, scarcely seen creature that it doesn't make sense to have multiple of them. What must this guy be thinking right now? We're actually going to make one more. I need to remember what colour it was. What colour are you, buddy? Where have you gone? Oh, if you want to name this, large carnivore, by the way. Large carnivore. Technically a piscivore, but still. Step. Okay. I mean, in the water, it doesn't... As long as you view it from the right angle, it doesn't look awful, right? I don't know, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. From a distance as well, it kind of blends in. We'll see what we can do about that in a little bit. We might put some plant life in the water as well, just to mix it up a little bit. It is a big shame we can't have, like, proper deep water. If we could probably fully mod Planet Zoo, and I felt comfortable modding Planet Zoo, which at this point I don't, I think Planet Zoo would actually be the better game to do this on. I kind of want to make a Cryptid Park in Planet Zoo. Anyways, we're going to make a step one. Actually, I'll tell you what, let's do what I was meant to do. Let's get this speedy. Meow. 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 And we're going to have this one, hopefully. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'd like to knock it out on the shoreline. And you'll see why. Oh no, because of the... did I already mention the hoax? I did, I mentioned the hoax. They had, you know, one on the coastline, and it's fake, blah, blah, so we could kind of make the hoax one as well. And it'll just make it a bit more interesting to have multiple creatures in there. So let's get that on the go, and we'll go hang out with this one in the meantime. I mean, from a distance, I think that's okay. I'm going to give it a little bit of an effect on the shoreline. Go. It doesn't look Scottish, admittedly, but that's okay. The idea of putting redwoods all around here hurts my soul. So let's capture mode for a little bit. So the first thoughts, back in 1930s, suggested that the creature was actually an otter, or even several otters in sequence, each representing a hump of the creature's back. Now, whilst otters would surely be much smaller than the gargantuan beast spotted, larger otters did once exist, admittedly not found in lakes of Scotland. They were found primarily in a place called Sardinia, which is an island in Italy, and they were massive, humongous, 6 foot, 7 foot, whatever, gigantic otters. But they're probably not here anymore. So what else could explain the size? Reporters and investigators posited that it was perhaps instead a group of seals. A few seals, again in sequence, could potentially look like a larger creature, and harbour seals have been spotted in that part of the country. They've even got that almost dog-like look to their faces. Seals look a little bit like dogs. He agrees. Some of the more modern suggestions are that particularly large eels are responsible, European eels for Oiki and Nessy, and that the sudden movement in water, a lot of people who see these creatures, they barely glimpse a creature usually, but they see a lot of tussling. This is why I don't spend time looking at the creatures, by the way, because they're bloody loud. They see a lot of tussling and movement within the water. And I think that might be caused by vegetation in the loch, releasing gases that come to the surface and then froths up. Other reports on Oiki are light on the ground. There's not that many reports, but the writer of a blog titled LochNessMystery.blogspot.com, and yes, that means we need to take everything I'm about to say with a gigantic grain of salt. The biggest grain of salt you ever did see, because it is called LochNessMystery.blogspot.com. Go check it out though, it's a good site, don't get me wrong, I'm just saying we have to be aware of the biases at play here. But anyways, apparently they questioned a man who had a sighting in 1998. He was an outdoorsman and experienced photographer, and he wanted to stay anonymous. This anonymous witness saw a huge dark coloured hump emerge from the waters. By the time they stopped the car and clambered down to the shore, it had already gone, leaving only disturbed waters in its wake, and therefore they missed the opportunity to photograph it. In his experience, it was unlike anything he'd ever seen before, and he's seen a lot of stuff. He lives in the area and takes lots of photographs. But if he had to wager a guess, he would suspect an eel of some form. It read as though he was unconvinced. I think he was more in favour of it being, you know, oiki, some form of prehistoric monster. The eel theory does hold up. Sorry. The eel theory does, however, hold up. If we move north, where the hell have you gone, by the way? Oh, this is live Loch Oik camera. Zoom again, trying to find our blimmin' sea creature. Hello? Hello? You're meant to stay over... These are the rules. You stay in the middle. We have a deal, okay? We're not done yet. Oh, that's what it's bitching about. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Nearly done on this one, anyway. So anyway, the eel theory has some backing. If we move further north to Loch Ness, which again is connected to Loch Ness, to Loch Oik, then just last year, in 2019, a group of New Zealand scientists conducted DNA testing on several parts of the water, loads of parts of the water in the loch. And they didn't turn up anything, unfortunately, to suggest a plesiosaur. They didn't even turn up anything suggesting a catfish or a sturgeon, both of which have been suggested as possible Nessy substitutes. But they did find an extreme amount. Basically every sample they took had some form of eel DNA within it. European eels, and it suggests that there is a gigantic European eel population within Loch Ness. So this eel has been recorded up to 4 feet or so long, and it could possibly stretch even further. So maybe that for me is the best explanation for what people are seeing. Dead eels floating to the surface, logs, stuff like that. Let's watch this. Very cool. I love it. I think it's daft as anything, but it is pretty awesome. So, we'll probably never really know for sure what Oiki, Nessy, or Lizzie are. One of the benefits and detriments of waterborne cryptids in particular is that it's nigh on impossible to verify or discount their identity. And this is a lake, it's even worse than the ocean. I think it's probably eels or some natural phenomena largely responsible. The tale of Nessy is so prolific at this point in time. For me, it's, along with Bigfoot, if you include Bigfoot and Yeti and all those as one creature, then along with the Chupacabra, I'd say even above the Chupacabra, Nessy is probably the most known cryptid on the planet, behind only the Bigfoot and Yeti, or even equal. You know, Nessy is so well known and so expected at this point in time that when people go to these lochs, they hope and expect to see these creatures. And any locals would surely know the tale of Oiki as well, although I'm sure they don't call it Oiki. Belief and superstition are powerful forces, and all it takes is a shift in the water, some disturbance in these darkened lakes to get the imagination thriving. We can't discount them. At the end of the day, though, we can't discount these at all until the lakes themselves are dredged entirely, like with a steel net or something, as the article in the newspaper suggested back in 1936. We'll never be able to write them off. And that's the beauty of cryptozoology. It's kind of like religion in a lot of ways. It kind of approaches things with a very scientific mindset sometimes, and you can use scientific equipment to search for these creatures. But a lot of cryptozoology thrives on faith and on belief. It's up to you whether you believe on these creatures. Of course, some cryptids we can't fully discount. They've been proven as hoaxes, or we can prove exactly where they came from, all this kind of jazz. But for a lot of them, it runs on faith, so it's up to you. Do you have faith in the existence of Oiki, and indeed Nessy herself? Me, not really. But hey, I'll leave it up to you. Right, that's the end of my script. This video went on much longer than... I apologise, this felt messy. You know, sometimes I'll do a video and it just feels like I've lost myself all the time, or I'm ranting about something else, and it's gone off much longer than I expected, and I apologise for that. Here we are. Hey, buddy. It's a pretty cool way to watch the creatures. It feels awesome. Is it 3 shots to take down a Spino? Go down, go down! Come on! Fall, you fool! God damn it. Where are you going? Come back here! Where's the other one at? Right. Wait for it. There we go! Okay, cool. That one's gone off. That is a tough old Mosasaurus over there. So this one, imagine you're driving down the coastline here. Down the shoreline, I should say, but not the coast. And the loch's there, Lagan's over there. You're driving along. And he looks over to the right. This is the guy in the 1960s, I believe it was. No, 1998. 1998 who spotted it. Ignore that one. You look to the right and you just see that kind of thing. And it does. It looks like a hump in the water. I think that's as good as it's going to get, really. But you can see the Mosasaurus feeding animation. There you go. Your lucky so-and-sos. Loves fish. Waiting. Waiting. Thumbnail. No, open your eyes. Thank you. Thumbnail. Just imagine this is all underwater and it works perfectly. Damn! Very cool. I mean, the head is underwater. That's near perfect. Just imagine, like, just looking at it like that, you can see, you know, this coil shape emerging from the water. It's got the spiked back ridge. It's tilting a little bit more than I would like, but it's not a million miles off. The head is actually under the water, and the tail is under the water, which is great. It will die if I leave it there, which is moderately annoying. There's a limit to what we can do here, if we're totally honest, but we'll make a good go of it. There's still room for several more habitats. That was a pretty big one. Kind of had to be, really. But if you have any suggestions for cryptids you'd like to see in this series, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section down below. Hopefully you appreciated learning about what I imagine is a brand new cryptid for nearly everyone watching this video. It was definitely a new one to me. I was not aware of Loch Oik before today. I apologise to any Scottish people watching, but I did try at the very least. That's got to count for something, right? Thank you for joining me. If you are enjoying this series, please do throw me a like down below. I will see you lovely folks next time. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye.